Thank you again, everyone. So this is probably our I think we've done over like 30, almost 3 years now. So over 30 plus. We started in 2022. Just started doing as a monthly interactive virtual roundtable for CISO community as well as the technologists or the founders who are developing solutions around that. So usually we invite two panelists who are CISOs or taking care of the security IT operations, and then we have a technologist in that area. So we've been following that structure. Then number of you folks who are CISOs who've been part of it, as well as new ones who are join in, and we make it interactive. So the idea is everyone can also provide their insights as well as participate, but we do it in a very so that and try to make sure that everyone can get an opportunity. So with that, I'd like to start off today. So we have our first panelist here, Hemant Chaskar, who is excuse me, CISO as well as head of IT and security at Nile Global. Hemant brings tons of experience. And also, I just noticed that we have two of them have PhDs today, including Hemant, who had a PhD from UIUC in Urbana-Champaign computers. So anyway, Hemant, would you like to elaborate a little bit more on your background for the audience? You're on mute, Hemant.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me to the roundtable, and nice to meet everyone here virtually at least. Uh, yeah, so I have been in general security space for almost 20 plus years now. So initial kind of decade I spent in building security technology and products, and last more than 10 years I'm most focused on information security operations side of it, like more like a CISO function. And in that, I cover product security, application security, SDLC, cloud security, compliance, enterprise IT security, basically the whole space of security. And I have worked at multiple organizations before, bigger, smaller startups. So yeah, so I got a good kind of experience across the whole spectrum of shapes and sizes of organization on how to drive these programs. So it will be good to talk about that and also get feedback from other folks how they are doing it.
Thank you, Hemant. Appreciate it. And our next panelist is Jason. Jason has been also in the CISO world recently with Topia. So Jason, would you like to uh, elaborate a little bit more for the audience on your background?
Sure. So I've been in the IT and security space for over 20 years, both as a player and a coach. So I've really been on both sides of the field, and it does give a different perspective, being able to bounce back between the technology and security space, and be able to wear those hats. Prior to Topia, I was at Walmart e-commerce, and before that, Saba Software, which was an LMS company acquired by Cornerstone On Demand. And looking forward to the discussion with the panelists and everyone on this call.
Thank you, Jason. And then our third panelist is Anoop Reddy. Anoop is VP of Engineering at Cloudbrink. He also has a PhD in computer networks from USC. So Anoop, please, if you would like to elaborate a little bit more on your background.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity here to come and talk in this fireside chat. I've been in networking and security for more than 20 years, mostly on the product side. So starting with networking and routing protocols and going into the first phase. I look at it as three separate decades, right? The first decade was about data center optimization. So we built out the first web application firewalls, doing security for data center and optimizing access into the data center. That's where my experience at Netscaler. We were a small startup building web security firewalls. We got acquired by Citrix and Netscaler. We built out that decade. And then the next decade was that of cloud infrastructure in general. So I was at Nutanix And then we built out a bunch of infrastructures out there, storage, security, networking infrastructure. And then now this is the third decade. This is where we feel that, with the onset of edge computing, onset of AI, there's a way to revolutionize remote access, going back into the networking and security. That combination, that theme continues in my career. So trying to see what we can do, and we really think that there's a big opportunity. That's where we started Cloudbrink, and that's where we are in terms of providing ZTNA and remote access solutions.
Okay. Thank you, Anoop. Really appreciate. So let's get started. So what basically our theme will be around, one is around the CISO's evolving role, and especially with a year ago what Gen AI, now you hear only agentic AI. So we thought it would be great to delve into that, because at the speed whole, the innovation is happening and the landscape is changing. I think it'll be great to hear from our these luminary panelists, as well as number of you in the audience, your insights. So first, let's start with Hemant. Hemant, you've been both, in the engineering, the product, to now in the CISO security roles. What have you seen in terms of how the CISO's role had changed over the years, 5 years ago and now, and where do you think it's going in the era of agentic AI, at least for the time being, until something else probably will come along in a year or so?
Yeah, so kind of my jumping into this particular focus area, right? CISO and InfoSec happened 10 years ago. And that was a transition phase, an interesting phase, because prior to that, CISOs were managing the security for enterprise infrastructure, right? The inward facing enterprise infrastructure, maybe your email, databases, firewalls, web services, and things like that. But it was never thought of as a role that supports your actual product and revenue that is delivered to the customers. And that changed when the SaaS theme started to evolve, where companies started serving products from their own cloud instances, right? So which customer doesn't manage, customer just consumes. So suddenly now the CISO role is thought of as a ensuring the security compliance, right? All other aspects of that infrastructure that is serving the customer. So it's now a product supporting function suddenly, and a continuously product supporting function. So that kind of was a big change. So, and somehow I was kind of I would say naturally thrust into this role as a business need of one of the companies I was working for, startup, and that was later acquired by Arista Networks. So that's how my journey started, and that was already a first shift, right? And then as the cloud kind of penetration goes, a lot of interesting ideas started to evolve, like automation started being very, very heavily using cloud operations, right? The CI/CD uh, theme started evolving, and then distributed architectures where you have these lot of API interactions with various different third-party services, or even your own assets owned in different environments. So the scope suddenly started expanding in this direction. The speed of operations, how quickly people are bringing up assets and changing assets, plus how many people actually work on that system, right? So earlier, if you thought it was more like a centralized operation where there will be some request, the security team will look at it as a change ticket, they will take a week to plan it and then implement it. That doesn't work. Now this all happens on seconds timeline, right? And distributed. So every engineer, cloud ops person, uh, DevOps person, everybody is kind of going and making changes. So that created an interesting dynamics of how to manage this extreme spread and sprawl of activity happening around the crowd. So that was like, I would say, a phase after the transition happened to a business value adding function to what is actually involved in it technologically, right? And to basically address all that, security also started becoming like integrating a lot of automations, right? A lot of development of its own. There were like developers now in the security teams, not just security domain experts. So that has gone like for last 5 years, and that is still there. And now a lot of people talk about this that is the topic of your uh, kind of fire chat today, which is AI and automation, AI and agentic AI, right? Or in general, any AI. So now it's going to look like how do you address that? That's technological evaluation, but alongside, like I said, it became business enabler. It also became innovation enabler because people want to try out a lot of things quick and fast. And how do you enable them rather than blocking them, right? To do those things very securely. So it also became like a innovation facilitator inside the company. So there are these various kind of trends on which the role has evolved over last 10 years, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Hemant. So Jason, how about would you like to how you have seen the whole this landscape for CISOs change
Sure.
or
Just to add,
changing?
yeah, just to add to what Hemant was speaking about, I think the evolution has really gone from more tactical to strategic. It all really depends on um, how the business and leadership sees the CISO role, whether it's a strategic part of the business and whether it has the role has a seat at the table, or again, is the role or function viewed more tactically speaking. So with the evolution of AI and how there are so many different vectors that threat actors are able to potentially infiltrate, companies and all the different various methods. You know, leaders now have, or security leaders now have, tools at their disposal to combat this. I think that's one of the huge differences, right? I think it brings a sigh of relief that you get, security operations at machine speed. So both tactically and both strategic, I think that's how the role has evolved.
Thank you, Jason. Anoop, obviously, you've been more from I'm sure you have dealt with a lot of CIOs, CISOs, and even in your current company, I guess you sell into those markets. So how have you seen from now or even in your past experiences? It would be great to hear.
Absolutely. So while we're a product company, but we ourselves, like Hemant mentioned, we ourselves have a SaaS. So we have to wear a CISO hat within our organization as well, in terms of security and how the security of our offerings are. So in addition to that, clearly there are agentic AI makes a lot of these tools available to everybody to do things at machine speed, to do things a lot more, to triage things faster, to be able to enact various different workflows at machine speed, right? Additionally, it's not just about the infrastructure that we use, right, for agentic AI for security compliance, but also a lot of the other functions within the companies I see are also using agentic AI, right? Developers are using Copilot. The other aspects, other parts of the organization are using agentic. Adoption is fierce. And the main question that we get asked is, how are you going to support as you do remote access, for example? We are remote access, we are a zero trust solution. Not just about zero trust to these employees who are trying to access resources anymore. It's about zero trust for all of these agents that are working on behalf of employees for different functions. Maybe it's developers, maybe it's DevOps, maybe it's different functions. How do you actually think of security and zero trust, and how do you put that umbrella around? What are the kind of tools and what are the kind of functions that you have? So that's pretty much been the most of the asks that we see from CISOs and rest of our customers. So that's top of mind. And then, of course, there's a lot of multiple different angles to this, right? It's not just about how do you protect, how do you prevent AI? I'm sure we'll go into the rest of these topics. How do you prevent these AI agents? How do you put a wrapper? How do you put zero trust around this? What is the kind of context that you can provide around each of these agents? What kind of access controls can you do? As they evolve and as they work through, what's the kind of data that they have access to? What is the kind of insights that they're exposing? Is it data pollution? A whole bunch of things around what kind of protections that you can offer for institutions that are adopting these agents. I think that's where most of the questions, and that's where quite a lot of our focus has also been. How do we evolve? It's not just about providing zero trust and access for individual employees within a company, but also agents within a company. Treat them as quasi-employees. And how do you think about trust? How do you think about reason about security?
No. So thank you, Anoop. Actually, I'll just lead that into our next theme, which is more of these agentic AI, more around practical use cases versus hype. So maybe you can help for the audience define the agentic AI in the context of cybersecurity, if you don't mind, or if you think you can kind of help us understand how do you look at it?
Absolutely. If you look at, of course, there are multiple different dimensions to this, and I'm sure Hemant and Jason will have a lot of other insights as well as CISOs, practitioners. But from agents, practically from a threat detection, for example, and many of these different kind of attack vectors that you might have, these agentic AIs are it brings a lot of insights together. So basically, it's nothing new, really speaking. If you really look at it, AI has been around. Of course, there are LLMs that are providing a lot more insight, right? You're able to bring insight from vast portions of data and be able to act on it. But the whole agentic AI, the way it's defined as is you bring insights and you also have corresponding automations and actions around it and be able to continue that loop and be able to do something actionable and be able to remediate, for example, or being able to bring insights across various different parts of your infrastructure and be able to do that in machine time. So those are the kind of use case from a threat modeling perspective, even from from a compliance gathering perspective, even if you look at it, other workflows as well, from a developer's productivity has increased big time, right? In terms of developers, in terms of being able to generate code, in terms of being able to do all of that. In all of those instances, the main question seems to be, how do you provide visibility into where? So it's not just about agents that are being provided as a service from corporations, but most of these users within a company, they're going to use whatever agents that they can that are available. Are they using external agents? How do you provide visibility into what services, what external AI services that are being used? That's number one dimension. Second dimension is, hey, if I do not provide an automated workflow agent for rest of my workflows for compliance or anything, end users are going to do it themselves. So if they're running the agents of their own against traditional systems, like for existing against an HR system or against my Salesforce, what are the kind of things that these agents are doing that I do not have control over? Visibility and being able to reason about what are the kind of things that they are doing. So multiple different dimensions along which these agents are being deployed, and people are thinking about, hey, how do I constrain these systems? How do I put protections around these systems? How do I reason about what are the kind of actions that they are taking? And not just about that, but also not just one time, right? These agents are also evolving over time. Their models continue to keep getting updated. So if you think of it like a software developer in terms of how do you these protections, as you think about these protections, where is my continuous testing? How do I continue to test and reason about are the results from these agents accurate or not, and continue to fine tune them over time? So I've talked about a lot of different aspects, but I hope that gives you enough amount of a flavor of the kind of things that are being asked out here: visibility, controls, and correctness, and how do you reason about what are the kind of things that these agents are doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Anoop. Hemant, I think it'll be great to hear your perspective. I know recently your CEO also had posted on this topic, right, from your company's offering side. I'm not saying you have to say anything on that, but just your perspective of how you're looking at it, as you guys are providing also a lot of, network infrastructure services, next gen, I would call it cutting edge services. So how are you seeing agentic AI from that context, as well as also from security perspective? You're on the mute, Hemant.
So on the first part, like Anoop explained, it's about context gathering, decision making, and action. So that is actually coming true in networking, right? So the telemetry that comes from the network, ability to interpret that, and ability to take automated actions. That's what AI automation we call about, right? Not just visibility, but action. And that's what you are talking about, what Nile has recently launched. So the telemetry that we connect from all our network across the, and it's not limited to like one session or one application, right? The whole set of metrics are consumed by the agents, and they detect when something goes off normal behavior, and then they also take actions, right? Because they learn from the past what actions uh, drive in what direction, and they automatically fix the problem. And then we have the logs of how many problems got auto fixed versus eventually something that's come to the human, but 85% is getting filtered out to automated corrections, right? So that part. So definitely call it an agent or call it a AI perception of all these logs, right? Metrics that it is able to do now at a large scale. That's really important on that angle. And how they are used in security. So just carrying that forward, right? One big area of large data processing was happening in SOC, because the amount of logs that come there, right? Whatever, tens of terabytes every day potentially, right? If you're bringing everything in, ability to interpret that humanly wasn't there before. I mean, people did UEBA, user and entity behavior analytics, and all that to find out like what is anomalous. But even after that, to interpret that, right? So if an alert gets raised, what is the historical timeline of that attack? So that was very difficult for human beings to do, just because of the volume of the data. But ability of AI to interpret data has greatly simplified that, right? So SOC is one first place where a lot of AI agents are being deployed, all the way to automated remediations, right? So they can now make a decision about fetching additional types of logs from another system, or which are not coming to SOC traditionally for the volume reason. So they are making those decisions, and also auto correcting some of the stuff, right? Now people may not like auto correcting every time, like firewall rule or something, so there you put human in the loop. But that's the first win that's coming there. And there's another big win which is very relevant for your company. The win is this vast amount of document processing that is required for compliance, governance, and your various customer facing activities like security questionnaires and all that. I mean, this used to take tremendous amount of effort and time earlier, and you are not doing anything like other than searching for the right information and uh, presenting it, right? But with this document kind of processing that is now possible, these things become like very fast now, right? In a matter of minutes, you can turn around like 200-line questionnaire, or your security policies and audit, even collecting evidence about the audit, right? Maybe from your Jira, from your Slack, from your emails, in the context of that control. That has become really, I think that's another win. And there are a few more, but I'll let Jason go over some more he has looked at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all great points. What I've uh, experienced is there's this do more with less, right? That's what a lot of executives are seeing as an opportunity for AI use cases. I think what's missing or often misunderstood is there's still the human element, whether you're ensuring that the AI agents are doing is correct. So there's still that quality assurance that you need. Again, and I think one of the challenges with AI, it doesn't have context, and that's something that only humans can provide right now. I think one of the things that we have to be careful about is is having governance around how AI is used. I think to Anoop's and Hemant's point, if you look at AI, it's if everyone knows or remembers the $6 million man, it gives developers and users of AI bionic strength if you think about it. So I think that's something that AI brings to the table. from what I've experienced and observed.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So I think there was a question in the audience from, I think, Manoj, you asked whether Manoj, you want to introduce yourself 2 lines and then ask, you want to
Sure.
talk
Yeah.
about this question? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I wanted to know from security perspective, is there an opinion market poll for on-prem solution versus cloud AI agents? And this question is pertinent to security because whether you want to send your security logs to some other OpenAI, Gemini, or some other cloud provider versus the customer wants to keep the security logs within their VPN on-prem. That was the context of the question.
Thank you. I don't know, Anoop or Hemant, anyone wants to talk about it?
Yeah. So Manoj, logs are already going to the cloud. If you look at any advanced SIEM now, right, that supports a lot of processing, UEBA, user entity aware analytics, immediate signature detection. The logs they are all stored from SaaS. I mean, the traditional on-prem, they are there. I'm not saying they've gone away. I mean, there are some markets where it has not completely transitioned, like defense and intelligence or other regulatory stuff. But in a commercial space, there's already a huge kind of migration of logs themselves to the cloud storage anyway, correct? So now the next step is, okay, so giving them to LLMs for analyze. So you either vendors run their own models inside their cloud instances or they use potentially cloud provided models, right? That is not a huge difference in my mind. I mean, anyway, you're hosting your model into, let's say, one of the 3 big cloud providers, IaaS, but they also provide hosted uh, instances of those same, right? It's a difference between whether you manage them or they manage them. So if you take that governance approach, I don't think there should be a big, just challenge like what you said. I mean, there might be other challenges like hallucinations and all that stuff, right? But letting logs being processed in cloud is already happening now. Let them be processed using AI type of, I think the barrier may not be there. But if you're talking other stuff like healthcare information, there might be different governance areas that would come in, right? But security logs, I think it should be fine. It looks like to me.
Yeah, but I guess the question, Manoj, for you is, or for the folks on this call, is the concern around what and how the data is being used that's ingested for training AI and modeling. Is that the actual concern?
It's not just the training the model, but also some people, and it is not just the health, some people have CAD designs and intellectual property of their designs, and they have signed NDAs with their customers. So they don't want to send this information to another cloud provider or maybe in an enterprise solution. So in those cases, they have vault kind of implementation, and this is within their network, sometimes on-prem, depending on the sensitivity. So that's why this question was coming from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anyone else would like to? Mike, good to see you here, Mike Machado. He's been CISO in this industry for a long time. So would you like to provide your perspective on this question?
I joined a bit late. So is the question about security concerns for AI or agentic in general?
Well, the question in this one was, Manoj was asking more about, the opinion on on-prem versus cloud AI agents. That's kind of what he was talking about.
I think the fact that it's an AI agent is not really material, and what matters is it's on-prem or in the cloud, and you would have all the same considerations, right, as if it was a SaaS product or anything else. Meaning, you'd want enterprise agreements, security terms, notification if there's a data breach, things like that, audits, compliance, certifications. If you're in a heavily regulated industry or you have special requirements, say like FedRAMP or something like that, it'll be a lot easier for you to host it yourself. Even if an organization says, hey, I've got your FedRAMP, version of the agentic product, a lot of organizations will still want the version of any software that they're hosting inside their FedRAMP boundary, inside their PCI cardholder data environment. these types of things. So from my perspective, it's not really an either or. It's more about these organizations, the different organizational needs. I think most companies are not going to want to host it internally, just like they don't want to host anything else, right? We're past the days where most companies want to host their email system, their CRM, their phone system, their meeting service, like whatever, right? And this is not really going to be any different, especially for small organizations that don't even have much in the way of IT resources, but are looking for the productivity gains that agentic brings. And I think there's going to be a phase where it operates like shadow IT or this whole, land and expand, classic sales land and expand mode, right? Where essentially all companies are trying to establish a beachfront within organizations and grow from there. It's going to be hard to spot that it's taking root in your organizations, that it's arrived. Um, and there's going to be this phase as well where we're kind of learning to adapt to it, like we learned to adapt to mobile, like we learned to adapt to SaaS, like we learned to adapt to smartphones, bring your own device and things like that, which is good for the vendor side of the house because essentially, they get to make sales without really the scrutiny of the established business processes, and eventually, the business processes catch up. That's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
If
Thank
I
you,
may
Mike.
add,
Thank you.
if I may add, that's actually a good point, but
Please.
the key question there is, how is my data, my organizational data leaking out, right, as part of training
Of course
these
it
models
is.
that going on? That's the key question here, right? It's
Yeah.
yeah, you can run something in the cloud and still be completely protected or not, or completely isolated, or your data you're running in a separate SaaS VPC or an isolated instance, or they do the multi-tenancy very well enough that it doesn't leak into other organizations and you're not worried. The key, especially what AI does, exposes you is your data leaking out. Is the question.
Data, whether it's generative AI or agentic AI or right, I mean, it's all a data sharing problem from a business perspective. I agree, and I think yes, your data is going to be leaking. Just like if someone showed up in the organization tomorrow, and with Smartsheets or Marketo or Zoom or whatever that didn't go through the right procurement processes, that's data leaking. Same, no different if they show up with Chat GPT or some like Drop Zone AI agents or whatever. It's all the same. And then once you have a data sharing agreement, like once you have an actual purchase that's like above the waterline in these organizations, then you'll be acknowledging your data sharing, but there's still going to be second party, third party, fourth party data sharing because the way these applications are built, they're not going to rebuild everything that every other AI service does. They're just going to incorporate it, and so we'll have this sort of like web or mesh of AI services with some sort of brand and front end on it, but a whole bunch of companies behind it. And it's going to be that way, I think, for a lot of the things we buy.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Kenneth, would you like to, anything from your side, any questions or any insights? You're on mute.
Thanks, Naveen. Well, so much of our deployment is really on-prem customer. Deploying AI is really a challenge because we really can't get a holistic view of the data. So that's where I keep that's where I see my challenge.
Because in your kind of solutions, I know Ken is CISO at a company called Vigilant. They do provide a lot of energy solutions to these, data centers. So I would think that your use of your agentic AI kind of would really help there, seems like, right? This conceptually to me. So that's why I was asking Ken.
Well, yeah, I mean, a certain way, I mean, we're not what's called agentic AI, but we're machine learning deployed in the data center. So our whole our whole model is really ship something that'll do it. But then, looking at from a security standpoint, so much of ours is, they call it air gapped, so whatever you want to call air gapped, something like that. Now I continue to explore, how can we, so we get like 90-day lag on pulling logs and then looking at them way on the back end. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So no, this is really great. Anyone else? Vlad, do you have any insights or questions coming from? I mean, you guys are so heavily into security. Vlad is at Fortinet. You're on mute if you have any. Okay, anyone else? Larry, any question or insights from your side to the panel? I just want to make sure I can cover anyone else. Anyone else wants, please feel free
No,
to.
my only question is, there's a lot of talk about agentic AI, and I'm just wondering where people are getting the most bang for their buck utilizing it without creating a security, problem for the CISO, because that poor person has a lot to worry about at night.
So Hemant, do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, sure. So challenges vary, right, based on your business model. So if you're building agents yourself and AI application yourself, like if your company is completely focused on building AI type of products, then there is a one kind of set of problems, right? And you know, they go in a direction of what tools your AI agents are using, how are they secured? Somebody mentioned access control before. The large language models that they are using and the what they call OODA loops inside agents, how they are performing. So that's one set of issues. You also mentioned governance of people who are actually building AI applications, and then there's another set where you are bringing in AI applications into organization, right? So it could be enterprise search or it could be CRM systems, coding, right? Automated coding was referred before. So how those platforms, uh, the security issues around them, right? So for example, if it is a CRM application, what kind of APIs you are allowing to access? Is it just the static information or is it going to pull dynamic information about the customers? And if so, then what are the possibilities of data leakage between customers because of the hallucination on that application? So these are the evaluations CISO has to do when you're bringing in technology or an enterprise search, right? So enterprise search goes all the way, like it goes to your Confluence, Slack, email, Google Drive, everything, and fetches document and shows content to people, right? How is that access control? What kind of data it can access, not access? So these are kind of challenges that are in the area of bringing technology into the organization. Somebody mentioned coding. So, I mean, of course, leave the copyright and all that apart, but how much developers can rely on that. And that's not really CISO's function, mostly like engineering leaders function as to what controls they want to put inside there in terms of code review and things like that. But those are the challenges in bringing AI technology into business operations. Uh, so really two different streams, we can think of the security issues in uh, two different baskets.
I'd add a third
you.
bucket as well, which is incorporating AI into your products, right? So much like you might incorporate Twilio or platform as a service, something like that, right? So I agree with Hemant, right? There's I'm a customer of AI. I use whatever it is, Chat GPT or so on, and sometimes that being a customer is just something built into something you're already using, right? Like Microsoft Copilot is now there for everyone who's been a customer of Microsoft Word all along. Then, of course, to your point, right, there's who's building models, right, or who's building agents, things like that. And then there's who's incorporating things that others have built into their products, right? So if I decided I'm going to go build, I don't know, some tool to help people write recipes for when they throw cocktail parties at home, and I decide I want to incorporate some generative AI into that, I'm not going to go invent a model. I'm going to incorporate a model that already exists, maybe from Hugging Face, or call the model's API in Bedrock or something like that. And so now I'm incorporating AI. We could even say there's a fourth category, which would be configuring AI, right? If I'm using services in AWS, services in Azure, those get configured just like, if I'm using other services in those public clouds. So, maybe we've got four categories of securing AI. And if I've built a product using it, then I have application security as well, not just AI security. There's these intersections, right? Between once you have an application on top of AI, there are abuse cases that are not so accessible if you're trying to attack the model like in isolation of an application, right? Because then it's just a model.
Yeah.
So can
Yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to add on to Larry's question around bang for your buck or ROI. So from my experience, I mean, from when companies are adopting AI, whether it's agentic or Gen AI, it's really to address low risk tasks. Think about developer enablement, right? Continuous compliance is another great use case for AI. Customer support is another area, and I think it evolves from there. But those are the three key use cases that I've seen companies adopting AI. All these note taker apps that you integrate into Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, and so on. Those are, again, the use cases that I've seen being widely adopted.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Vladimir. Sorry, I was on another call when you asked the question. One of the things that I'm hearing a lot around AI and security is around the language learning models and so forth. And a lot of the large enterprises want the language learning models to be actually in their own data center or within a private cloud environment. And one of the concerns that I'm hearing a lot about is as AI comes in, complexity comes in. And when you have complexity coming in, that means the security around the whole environment gets more and more complex. So yes, you're advancing technology and you can't stop it. However, the breaches can increase, and that's why there's this tendency for more of the private cloud. And I don't know if you guys would agree to that or not, but that's a lot of the talk, especially when we go into quantum computing, when you're seeing encryption being easily broken down in the future. How are you going to contain that, and what technologies are there to protect you? So that's a lot of stuff that Fortinet's working with around our areas and our customer base, and hearing from some of the top large enterprise CISOs. So I just wanted to add that.
No, thank you so much, Vlad. I'm sure it's helpful to a lot of folks here. So now we are almost getting into the last 10 minutes. So what anyone else wants to add to this before we go to the last our theme or question, I guess? And we have Emlyn. Do you have any insights or questions? Because I know you from your AWS perspective. Looks like you're on mute. Okay. So the last, I mean, what I was going to ask you is just starting off with whether, either of three of you, then from the audience is what do you see, how do you see in this changing landscape? Because I just feel like it's just changing so fast, right, in everything. What do you think are the top priorities for security programs? Let's say you as a CISO, if you want to, or in general, you think the colleagues is like over the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Top priorities for a security program, let's call it, over the next 12 months. So Hemant, how about we start from you? You're smiling.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, so I explained how kind of things last 10 years suddenly changed from more static to highly dynamic, right? CI/CD, DevOps, bringing up huge infrastructures with automations, removing them, multi-party APIs. Similarly, if you throw in all these agents and language models into this uh, thing now, so you have to first ensure your foundation is solid. So if the foundation itself is bad in terms of infrastructure, security, secrets management, DevSecOps, then all this is going to come down very quickly, right? Especially, when you're building so much in an advanced layer on the top, you will need a lot of solid foundational hooks to plug into that. So improving your foundation this never goes away. Uh, and then second thing is addressing these novel threats, right? So uh, what are various use cases? Maybe the four categories that you have mentioned, uh, Mike mentioned, and what is required as a new tooling or new processes, new procedures, new governance to address that. So a lot of this is very early stage right now, but as you go through, you will think of those things more, and they may not be brand new, but they have to be adapted to the new terminology, the new architecture, new models, so that they become efficient and easily manageable, right, from a security standpoint. So those will be the priorities, I think, moving forward.
And how about Anoop?
Yeah, absolutely. The agentic AI is not, it's only going to increase over the next 12 months, whether it's provided as standard agents that are provided by the company for different workflows or rather approved by the security team, approved by IT and being able to, or these common agents, or end users bringing their own agents. There is no question about, the proliferation of these agents because they clearly optimize many of these workflows, make them more efficient, do a better job than what humans would do and all of that. So the main concern is how do you put a wrapper, how do you put controls around these things that are coming? So first thing is around visibility as to what's going on, who's using what and what are they being used for. Second thing is around how do you reason about these, what these agents are able to do, because these agents are going to talk to legacy systems, right? To your Salesforce, to your HR systems, to your any other legacy system or existing systems that you have to extract data. They have the right set of controls from in a previous framework in terms of end users being able to access. But now with these agents being able to get data and be able to consolidate data across multiple different views and be able to constantly query for more data to basically they are data hungry LLMs, because that's the way they are able to provide better insights to the end users, because the end users is what's demanding. So how do you put controls around these? How do you secure your existing systems? How do you reason about what an agent has done how do you put audit controls around it? How do you have audit trails around what these agents have done? Is what's going to be very critical as you have to wrap your heads around those. And of course, there's going to be a lot of other evaluation, but this would be in the next 12 months is visibility and controls around these.
Thank you. Very good insights. Jason?
Sure. Yeah, I
How
think, yeah. So in terms of how I see security teams and how they'll evolve from a CISO perspective, I mean, we're starting to see it now. I think there's fewer tier one analyst roles because a lot of what AI does today is doing the mundane task triaging or the initial triage of alerts, and even certain containment actions can be done through AI. So there's a huge shift in that. I'm close to a lot of the security leaders at a large retailer. And that's one of the things that they've gone through in the past few weeks is really a reduction in staff because of the evolution of AI and how it's being adopted at their company. We're seeing a lot of security engineers with AI and automation expertise. I think that's one of the biggest shifts that I've seen when interviewing candidates for roles or referring candidates for roles that are open at other companies. It's the experience and expertise in how to use AI, and that's becoming a huge part of what companies are looking for. So a lot of hybrid roles, and that's really how I look at it in the next 1 year and beyond.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else would like to kind of provide their insight? Jay, it's good to see you here. Jay's, you're on mute if you want to provide your insight, because your company, Jay, is founder, CTO of number of companies and currently many. So, which is AI based for the dental practices. So, any insights from your side or any question you have?
No, nothing right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else? Last, we have a few minutes. Suresh Sandasani, Henriette, Andre, Hui, Ravi, who else? Setu, Shokai, Brian, anyone? Apurva? I just want to make sure I called out everyone. And Kenneth.
That's right now. Thank you.
Okay.
I heard, yeah,
Byron, yeah, please.
yeah, really quick question. I don't know if anyone else has seen this. I had an interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago, and similar to the point about automation, with the analyst role, there was a midterm concern that analyst roles have traditionally been a feeder system to the CISO community, and then as that gets automated out, you start losing that feeder system. Is anyone else like seen that or worried about that?
Who wants to take a stab
I would
at it?
say I have not seen that, but I am concerned about that as the entry-level positions go away, and essentially we're only looking for more senior roles to hire. How are people going to develop their fundamental skills that they're using in more senior, more advanced roles? I also think I'd be concerned if I was a cybersecurity student, like an undergraduate, about what roles are going to be available for me when I graduate. And I think from a talent pool perspective, it's also challenging in that agents are going to have a problem that undergraduates also have when security people, we'll just say of a certain age, started doing security.
Yeah.
There was no security. They came from different software engineering or IT or whatever, even business sometimes, right? And so on, which informs how we approach security and makes us better at the job. Had we all started with simply a 4-year degree in cybersecurity, we wouldn't have this breadth that we all fall on or rely on. So I think that's a concern as well. So now we've got, in my opinion, 2 or 3 things that are stacking on top of each other to create a weakening effect in the incoming talent pool and the incoming job market.
Great point, Michael. Thank you.
If I may add, the way I always say, even for developers or even for security analysts, anything, AI, all these tools don't make a bad developer a good developer or a great developer. It makes a great developer a 10x developer, right? In that sense. The same way here also, from a security analyst, yeah, you start off with the entry-level positions. Yeah, many of those tasks are getting automated, but still there is a place for people. There are not as many positions out there. There are not as much tasks because most of these tasks are automated. But there is a place for people to learn, or if there's a lot of lot of tools, controls that you have to put around these systems to be able to do this. A lot of manual work also that will remain. For example, you need to sample some of these things. You need to go and make sure that these tools are working correctly. So there is still an opportunity for people to just get in, but not as much of an opportunity. Clearly, and to Michael's point, you need more of a breadth of people who have a breadth of knowledge, who built out that expertise, that background. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed by just doing laying at that low level and at one level of analysts.
Yeah. I think there's also some hope, right? Rays of hope. So I won't just be the doom and gloom guy. I'll maybe end on a positive note. For every analyst job that goes away because there's some agentic or other type of AI solution, there's an AI product company that needs a security person to secure it. So maybe these, one goes away, the other one forms. The other thing is a lot of security products create downstream work. They create more work, right? And so if we have a bunch of security agents essentially creating a bunch of security work, at some point the agents are going to need to hand off that work. There's not going to be this infinite depth of agents. I think it was Jason mentioned earlier, we're hiring agents for low risk tasks, right? We're not hiring agents for advanced work. So as these low risk tasks increase in volume and create more next level work, that needs to be handed off to people, at least in the current situation. So, maybe a bunch of these, when we finally get through our infinite list of security alarms because agents are doing the work 24/7, maybe there's a whole lot of human investigations that need to take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to that. It's if tier one analysts are inundated with alert fatigue, for example, I look at AI as just enabling them to really focus on what truly matters instead of chasing an alert and trying to find out the root cause or what was the cause of that alert. I think it's really supercharging the more junior roles, and it'll allow them to really learn. They could actually learn a lot more in less time instead of going through the pain that all of us who are panelists here have gone through in our careers. And you could see tier one analysts move up the ranks faster. That's even a possibility. So back away from the doom and gloom, and I see the positive of it. That's a possibility.
Yeah, no, that's it. There's a good point, Emlyn. You brought out these agents for calling APIs. I thought that was a good, but I think we are almost there unless someone wants to talk about it. Emlyn has a question about these the views on CISOs automating continuous auditing of APIs and but better design of APIs since agents are now creating and calling APIs, as you say. Anyone wants to talk about it quickly? I know we are 4 minutes past, but you can, for an insightful answer, I'm sure we'll be happy to stay for another minute or so. Anyone wants to talk about it, Hemant, or anyone on this?
I think AI, one of the promises of AI is that it doesn't sleep, right? So yes, you can automate continuous audit of, different things that were not feasible before. And so, one of those things will be APIs, another one might be your attack surface, another might be, whatever. I do think it's this poor quality code coming out of AI, AI begetting more code, begetting more code, begetting more code that Emmeline's calling out is certainly a problem that I don't see a solution for anytime soon.
All right. So with that, thank you. So with that, we'll close off our today's session. Thank you all for being here, Jason, Anoop, and Hemant, Mike, and Emlyn, of course, Vlad, Henriette, Kenneth, I'm just trying Suresh, Jay, thank you for coming. Hui, Andre, Brian, Shokai, and Sethu, as well as Chandra AI. All right, so we'll next month we'll try to delve into these API, agentic API security or something even more interesting. By that time, something else starts coming in our horizon. All right, you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for joining and making it very insightful.